Hello fellow members of the Midnight Society, welcome back to another episode review from the show Are You Afraid of the Dark? Last time we covered The Tale of the Renegade Virus, a Gary story designed to make Tucker feel bad for infecting Gary's computer with a virus. Tonight's narrative, from Sam, is about a bashful teen that either has a mental breakdown or travels back in time, or both. Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call this Season 4, Episode 2, The Tale of the Long Ago Locket. We open on the members of the Midnight Society showing up to find Sam deeply engrossed in a book, to the point where she's not even acknowledging them, even when this happens. You know what? I wish a motherfucker would. Sam wouldn't let that shit slide. She'd rip Tucker's throat out like she was Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. Then he'd be dead and I'd be happy. Okay. Sorry guys. Tucker just knows which buttons to push. I really do hate him, more than I hated Eric. Sorry, Eric. Sam finally snaps back to reality and reveals that she's reading a history book, and, as per usual, when it comes to reading, Frank responds with,
"History? Could you find something more boring?"
Sam doesn't appreciate the sass and has a comeback locked and loaded.
You didn't think it was boring when you asked me to study with you after school.
Of course, Frank doesn't back down and even throws some shade at Gary along the way.
I'm not much for history, but I am fun to hang out with. Unlike some guys.
I know this is Frank's last season, and if he keeps up behavior like this, it's not because he moves away. It's because he's buried in a shallow grave with the body of Eric.
All right, I admit it.
Sam says that her story is about a guy who learns that history repeats itself, and if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. Ooh, sounds foreboding. With a preamble like that, I'm expecting a grisly tale and surely not a teen tale of romance, right, Sam? Right?
Am I missing something?
Sam calls her story The Tale of the Long Ago Locket, but, who the hell talks like that? Why is it called The Tale of the Long Ago Locket? Because it features a locket from long ago. How long? From the time of the Long Ago War. You know the one from long ago. Seriously, why not the Lost Locket, since we find out that it never makes it to its destination before the plot of this story, or the Long Lost Locket for that alliteration? Look, sorry, I know this detail isn't going to bother anyone else except for me, but I had to address it.
Logical.
The tale begins on our main character Jimmy in history class, creepily staring at the girl of his dreams, April. Wait a second. Is that Will Friedle of Boy Meets World and a whole cornucopia of animated projects, including the voice of Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond? I mean, not the biggest name we've ever seen on the show, not by a long shot, but I'm excited. What? Jimmy's lovelorn stare is interrupted by his teacher while we get some voiceover from Sam about how it's not easy to tell someone you like them, especially if you don't know if they feel the same way. I mean, that's true. I can't even knock Jimmy for his technique here. Creepily staring while never revealing how you feel. I mean, that was my signature move in high school. Though, I wasn't half as good looking as Will here, so I don't know what his issue is.
I love skating. Do you like skating?
I love it.
I love it too. I like skating.
We cut to Jimmy walking home through a park with the energy of a 65-year-old man suffering from hemorrhoids. He hears the sound of a horse, which he's clearly never heard before, so he goes to investigate. While looking around, he finds a knife, but when he goes to pick it up, this happens. The next day at school, Jimmy finally decides to approach April, but does so in a way that proves his infatuation is only skin deep and he knows nothing about her.
Can you believe how boring this Greek history stuff is?
You think so? I really like it.
It's fine. That is perfectly fine. I'm sure he can easily pull his foot out of his mouth.
I mean, I didn't mean like bad boring. I meant like, I wish she'd speak faster so we could learn more because it's so interesting.
I was wrong. Anyway, he finally manages to awkwardly ask April if she'd like to go ice skating sometime, which is something that she's actually into, but before she can answer, a character who I'm certain probably has a name, but that I'm just gonna call the third wheel, interrupts.
Saturday night's the opening night. Tower of Blood Part 4. Do you want to go?
Also, third wheel is played by the same actor who played Billy in The Tale of the Dream Machine, and what a growth spurt. He looks like those old milk commercial ads where two different actors would play the same person at different ages after drinking milk.
What girl's gonna go for me with a body like this?
Hang in there, Tom.
I'm you 2 years from now, because you're drinking milk and working out.
Anyway, even though April starts to let third wheel down easy by bringing up Jimmy's plans, Jimmy, as though he's a beta in the presence of an alpha wolf, immediately backs off and tells April to go to the movies with him instead. Bro, it's obvious that she was more interested in hanging out with you. Get your f***ing head in the game. After school, Jimmy is walking home behind a couple holding hands. He's clearly irritated by this and speeds up to pass them, but then pulls this little move. Subtle and not weird at all. If anything, this little insight, coupled with his lack of knowledge about April, leads me to believe that Jimmy doesn't really care about April, he just wants to be in a relationship. I mean, he's probably never been in one, and for one reason or another, April is just the person that he's latched onto. It's pretty unhealthy, but I'd be lying if I said high school me couldn't relate. Wow, this episode's really bringing me down. Let's make with the scary shenanigans. Oh, sorry, back to me being unprofessional. Hello? Oh, hey, David, hi. It's the director. Yeah, what's up? Uh-huh. There's no scares in this episode at all. Huh. Okay. Hey, I've been meaning to ask you, how do you guys always know when I say stuff like that in order to call? I mean, do you have like a hidden camera watching me at all times or something? Hello? Hello? He hung up. Jimmy makes his way off the beaten path again, only to see someone running through the trees, causing him to react thusly.
What, do you think I don't see you in there? Why don't you come out of the bushes, huh?
Hey, Captain Courageous. Need I remind you of this from just the day before? Jimmy is confronted by a man showing a lot of chest hair, asking him to show him the way to Harrisville. Their conversation is cut very short as they are set upon by redcoats who immediately open fire, and even though no one comes even close to hitting Jimmy, the stranger tackles him as though he saved his life. Come on, guys. Just get behind some trees. There's a reason back then soldiers would line up and slowly advance on each other while firing those rifles. Either the soldiers or the weapons themselves were inaccurate as
Gentleman's out of order.
Jimmy and the stranger make a run for it while the soldiers are reloading. They hide behind some rocks but are set upon by a soldier with a bayonet. Jimmy dives to the ground while screaming like he did the day before, and then this happens.
Jimmy, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Jimmy wandered off into no man's land. What are you all doing here? Anyway, Third Wheel asks if Jimmy is all right, and he lies, claiming that he was just looking for a contact lens. While he's on the ground pretending to look for it, he does find something. Jimmy takes the button to an antique dealer, or historian, or both, who gives a bit of exposition about the battle fought in the park in the past, before stating that Jimmy's find is unusual.
Most artifacts that people bring in are old and rusted and decayed. If I didn't know better, I'd say a Minuteman had worn this very day.
Or it's been in someone's family collection and well cared for until recently getting lost, which would be the more plausible explanation, you weirdo.
Very unusual.
We cut to another day where Jimmy, April, and Third Wheel are hanging out. Jimmy is distracted while April and Third Wheel awkwardly throw a frisbee back and forth while they're like 3 feet apart from each other. Third Wheel gets Jimmy's attention by throwing the frisbee at him, and when Jimmy goes to throw it back, he tells Third Wheel to go long, which in Canada apparently means just take 1 step back. Jimmy then throws the frisbee as it is meant to be thrown, and this seems to confuse everyone, including Jimmy.
Sorry, the wind took it.
Jimmy says he'll get the frisbee, and when April suggests they all go, Jimmy shuts her down. But dude, I mean, if you're seeing things in the park, what better way to prove that you're not nuts than to have people with you to corroborate the wibbledy-wobbledy, timey-wimey stuff that's happening?
Correctamundo, a word I have never used before and hopefully never will again.
Jimmy sends the others to a diner, telling them he'll meet them later, but immediately finds the frisbee within visible range of where he threw it from, so I guess he can just catch up to the others in about 30 seconds.
The spy!
Okay, everyone, back to 1. What are you doing? I assumed you were going to want another shot since the horse almost ruined the take. No way! That horse is a member of ACTRA. Do you know what it'll cost us if it neighs on camera again? The soldiers quickly capture Jimmy and are escorting him to be executed. The stranger from before shows up and fires a single shot into the air, which allows Jimmy to escape because the British apparently don't know how ropes work. The stranger asks Jimmy to guide him to Harrisville again. Jimmy asks, "What's so important about Harrisville?" prompting the following response.
You ever cared about somebody and didn't have the courage to tell them? Yeah. What is her name?
Josh, I think. We haven't actually established his name in the episode, but it's in the script. The stranger explains that his love is set to marry a man that she doesn't love unless he can get to Harrisville that day and present her with something.
And give her this locket as a sign of my love.
Or, and I'm just spitballing here, but since you're making the trip, you could also tell her how you feel as well. From my historical research, ladies do like to hear those things from the source on occasion.
I'm here to begin my courtship with you, Kate. Come on, Kate. I know you've been hiding some feelings for me.
Oh, yeah, nausea.
The stranger says that he and Jimmy share the same spirit, and he presents him with a knife to bind their friendship. Jimmy finally asks what year it is, and we find out that it's 1780. The British show back up, causing Jimmy and the stranger to split up. Jimmy makes his way out of the trees and almost winds up like Gage from Pet Sematary, which would have made this a vastly scarier episode.
First I played with Dad, then Mommy came, and I played with Mommy. Now I want to play with you.
Back at the historian or antique dealer, we learn that the stranger's name is William from an engraving on the knife. That is, of course, provided that William is the original owner of the knife and it wasn't gifted to him to bind another friendship. I mean, maybe that was like a big military custom back in the day. I don't know. Anyway, the historian claims to recognize the name from one of his books. He presents Jimmy with the book Historic Harrisville County. We then transition back to Jimmy's history class where he's reading the book. In it, Jimmy learns that Lieutenant William was captured by the British and hung. Jimmy leaps into action, trying to leave class to get back to the park to save William from his fate.
I need to be excused.
Why, Mr. Armstrong?
A friend of mine needs some help.
Really, Jimmy? You could have used any number of excuses to go to the bathroom or the nurse. Explosive diarrhea, for example, would have surely gotten you excused. But to just say that a friend needs help is never going to convince a teacher to let you leave early. Look, it's fine. It's fine. I'm sure as soon as the bell rings, we're going to see Jimmy sprinting for the park. Or, yeah, man, take your time. I mean, technically William's already dead, so there's no rush. April and Josh ask Jimmy what's going on. He tries to explain, but they don't believe him. Whew, if only they had seen it themselves, huh, Jimmy? Huh? Anyway, Jimmy asks to borrow Josh's boombox, and Josh agrees, even though Jimmy never returned his frisbee. April then says she's going with him, to which Jimmy responds,
No! Just wait here, all right? I mean it.
"What are you doing? Let her come with you and see that you're not a crazy person."
I like skating.
Back at the park, Jimmy finds William tied to a tree while the British prepare his noose. Jimmy uses the boombox to lure the British away so that he can free William. The two make a run for it. Jimmy gives William directions to Harrisville, but before William leaves, he tells Jimmy not to make his mistake. He says that if he loves April, he should
Just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
Oh, that's Shia. Such a romantic.
Yeah.
Jimmy then leads the British away from William, but while he's running from the men on horseback, he sees April in the distance. He tackles her to protect her, only for this to happen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you.
Dude, if this girl still likes you after you've seemed like the most unstable human being on the planet the last few days, just marry her, because no one is going to be that tolerant of you in the future.
Come on, you gotta wake up, man. I mean, it's not like we're in history class anymore.
Since Are You Afraid of the Dark does like to reuse actors, I sometimes wish that their stories shared more characters. Like, I really wanted the girl on the horse to be Mia Kirshner playing her character from The Tale of the Hungry Hounds, having been given permission to ride horses at the end of that tale. Anyway, that's just a weird tangent. Back to your original programming.
Stick around if you dare.
Jimmy asks April why she followed him, and she says because she cares about him. He tells her that he cares about her too, but just didn't know how to tell her for the longest time. She asks what changed his mind, resulting in... I find that using my words to answer someone's question is a better response than grinning and drawing a knife, unless you're going to murder that person like a psychopath, which, I mean, to be fair, would have been a great twist ending. But since that's not what happens, Jimmy, act like a normal human being. Anyway, this is how the scene actually plays out.
Why did that happen?
Okay, at least the knife changing proves to April that the dreamy future TV brother of Ben Savage isn't a whack job. Jimmy then finds William's locket on the ground, which makes no sense. The other items Jimmy found were the direct result of him interacting with the British soldiers and William giving him the knife. The last we saw, William took the locket to Harrisville to present to his love. This is not Harrisville, so why is the locket there and in the same brand new condition as though it were through the time shift? Did William lose the locket before getting to Harrisville? Emmeline, you cannot marry that man. You don't love him. And besides, I have brought you a... I just had it. Well, it's not important. It was just a symbol, really. It was just meant to represent how I feel, the words that I've never been able to say, and because I feel, and you're there too, and we with the oh, forget it. After finding the locket, Jimmy says,
For a long time, I wanted to tell you how much I cared about you. I just didn't have the words. Maybe this can say it for me.
Here's this locket I just found on the ground with a picture of two strangers in it as a symbol of my affection for you. Thanks. Hey, what happened to Josh's boombox? Sam gives some exposition about Jimmy checking the Harrisville history book and finding the entry on William changed. It now said that he made it to Harrisville, proved his love to Emmeline, and married her. I feel like he was only featured in the history book initially because of his tragic fate at the hands of the British. If that never happened, he was just a dude who married the woman he loved, and probably wouldn't have been in the book at all. At any rate, Sam ends the story by saying,
As for Jimmy and April, well, I'll let you figure that one out for yourselves.
They had unprotected sex, April got pregnant at 17, and they resented each other for the rest of their lives.
The end.
Frank breaks out a couple of tickets to a concert and tries to ask Sam to go with him, but he gets cut off.
She's already going with me.
And me. I had 3 tickets, so...
Gary's going with both Betty Ann and Sam? 12-year-old me would have been so damn jealous. On the plus side, though, I'm pretty sure the episode ends with Frank beating the shit out of Tucker and leaving him crippled in the woods.
Guess that means, your history.
Now for the review. I found this episode oddly enjoyable. I do think it felt way out of place in the Are You Afraid of the Dark lineup. I mean, it wasn't scary, nor did it really lean into the more Twilight Zone aspect of things that some episodes do. In order for that to have happened, it would have needed some bigger twist, like William being Jimmy's ancestor that he saves, or Jimmy falling in love with someone from the past where he ultimately decides to stay in the end. And, I mean, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy the story that we got, it just didn't feel like Are You Afraid of the Dark?
No end to the treachery of these barbarians!
The settings were fine. There was a bit in a classroom, but most of the episode takes place in the woods, like actual woods, which was good. What really sold it for me, though, was something that I don't often talk about when reviewing the show: wardrobe. The costumes for William and the British soldiers looked really good and made you believe Jimmy had traveled back in time even though we never see any buildings or anything. It's some clever filmmaking.
We share the same spirit.
The story's good, if a bit bland. I wish we could have seen Jimmy spend more time with William on the run from the British to kind of see that courage building up in him. I also would have preferred April to go with Jimmy to the past. I mean, even if it was just for the final time. That way she sees what Jimmy's been experiencing, and then we can even see the two of them work together to free William to give us more of a connection between the characters. I mean, as it stands, I really didn't care when Jimmy gives her the locket at the end because we spent so little time with her throughout the episode.
Really?
The scares. Well, as already stated, there are no scares in this episode, which is fine. It was a time travel story after all. It didn't need scares. But it did need some tension, and I never got that either. I never felt a threat from the British for either Jimmy or William, so there wasn't a climactic payoff for me in the end. Younger me also wouldn't have found this episode scary, though it might have given him the courage to present girls with random jewelry that I found on the ground.
This isn't funny, guys.
The acting in this episode was pretty solid. April and Josh are given very little to do, so it's kind of hard to criticize or praise their roles. They were both fine, but I mean, we didn't even learn Josh's name in the episode until his last scene, so it's not like the script was actually going to give him a personality, though the actor did the best with what he was given. Jimmy was great. He played the awkwardly shy kid really well at the start before transitioning into the more confident, I answer questions with a grin and a knife character that we got at the end.
I gotta go.
The adult acting in this episode was good. The history teacher and the antique store guy weren't really in the story enough to mention. The redcoat captain wasn't done any favors by the script for being an intimidating villain, but he did well enough with what he had to work with. William was the standout of this episode for me. He played the desperate man on the run very well, and when he talked of Emmeline, you could feel what he was feeling. I mean, it's rare to get a strong adult performance on this show that isn't a villain or just full of camp, but this was one of them. Sam, despite this being on the fringes of what I would consider an Are You Afraid of the Dark story, the tale of the Long Ago Locket meets the approval of the Midnight Society. The Midnight Society members poll on this one was pretty one-sided. At the time of recording this video, out of 112 votes, it was 87% in favor of, with only 13% against. So, my ruling stands. Great job, Sam, but let's work on those story titles, huh?
I'm sorry.
I want to thank the following Midnight Society members for participating in this video's poll.
Please, my friend, the British are after me. You must show me the way to Harrisville.
Yeah, sure. Names are on the screen. Oh, William! Come out, wherever you are. You left your fire burning in the woods. Ah well, not my universe. I'll need your locket, William, and I will have it. Where you at, you naughty boy? What did you all think of Sam's story? Did you see it as a kid? If you started finding all sorts of pristine historical artifacts in the park, would you keep them or try to get on one of those pawn store shows? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to check out the next episode on the tale of the water demons. Until then, are you afraid of the dark?
I like skating.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and a share. It really helps out the channel. Be sure to subscribe and click that bell icon to be notified when more Midnight Society episodes go up. Thanks, everyone.